So, one of the biggest surprises in Avengers Endgame was Fat Thor. No pun intended. Who saw that coming? I sure as hell didn't. I mean, after establishing Thor as a funny goofball in Ragnarok and then cementing him as the badass MVP of Infinity War, surely there must be a reason behind such a drastic change in Endgame. So buckle up as I give you my take on Thor's transformation and arc in Avengers Endgame. Before we talk about Thor in Endgame, we need to talk about Thor at the end of Infinity War. After making his badass entrance in the Battle of Wakanda and just changing the tide of the battle in favor of the heroes briefly, when Thanos arrives, Thor is fully consumed by vengeance for his brother and massacred his guardians. He mocks the Mad Titan after stabbing him in the chest instead of ending it right then and there, and it's this moment of hubris that leads to Thanos snapping his fingers, and you know the rest. Immediately, Thor is horrified when he sees his friends die, as he realizes that he has failed in being the hero that he was supposed to be. Keep this sentence in mind. Thor begins Endgame by chopping Thanos' head off, and he says that he went for the head. But even he, and of course we the audience, know by the tone and regret and remorse in his voice that this action is futile this late in the game. Cut to 5 years later, and Thor is in a very, very dark place. He's a fat, drunk, inefficient king wallowing in self pity and playing Fortnite all day. Yeah, he's in that dark, that bad of a place. It's not hard to imagine someone who's failed and lost this much being in a position like this. And also remember that Thor also feels inadequate, as he's an immortal god of thunder who shouldn't be in a rough spot like this. Couple that with how much he clearly misses his family, and you get a Thor who is emotionally devastated. When he visits the events of Thor the Dark World, instead of talking to Jane Foster, which I'm glad didn't happen, Thor gets to talk to his mother, who explains that even though he is a failure, it's okay because everyone fails at who they are supposed to be. And the true measure of a person, of a hero, is how well they succeed at being who they are. By saying this, his mother sets him free from the burdens and chains of his own demons. But I don't think they go away altogether, even until the end, since journeying back from such a dark place is no easy task, god or mortal. We see him bring up his failures once again when they discuss who should wield the gauntlet. He says, "Let me do something right," but he's definitely not ready for it. He does play a major part in the battle, dual wielding his weapons, but that definitely got overshadowed by Cap wielding Mjolnir. But I'm glad that Thor cheered for Cap just as much as Captain America cheered for Thor in Infinity War. And instead of a battle, it's something much more cathartic that we get for the closure of his arc in the movie. After the battle is won, we see the God of Thunder leaving everything behind. He leaves Asgard in the much more qualified hands of Valkyrie and decides not to be burdened by his godhood anymore. It's kind of hippie-ish, but Thor decides to become a wanderer and decides to travel with the Guardians now, which are the perfect team for someone who is lost as much as Thor is during the course of the film. It's unexpected, but makes sense, and I found it to be beautiful. The reason I like Thor's arc in Avengers Endgame is because it takes the character in bold and unexpected territory. Like, we knew that, they couldn't just keep upping Thor's badassery or goofiness in the next movie after Infinity War, given the ending of Infinity War. With the blood of the universe on his hands as much as Thanos. Definitely, I think a mature direction needed to be taken, and I think the Russos have excelled here by making Thor more compelling than ever, by humanizing him more than ever. See, Thor didn't really change much during the early course of the MCU. He remained the same character. Yeah, he went from arrogant to humble, and then I guess nothing. He didn't really change, and he wasn't that dynamic of a character. He was the least complex of the holy trio, Iron Man, Cap, and Thor. But since Ragnarok, with the destruction of Asgard and the consequent events of Infinity War and Endgame, Thor loses everything. Everything that he had, his home, half of his people, a quarter of his people, I think, and then his brother, his mother, his father, almost everyone dear to him is gone. It's a very sad story, but I think it was one that Thor needed to go on to make his arc interesting in this movie. And I think it was beautiful and it was ended perfectly. I think you can read this as a new beginning as well, as I think Thor's path to self discovery has just begun. And it will be really interesting to see how they develop him in future movies. And I'm very excited for that. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Thank you for watching. This was my take on Thor's arc in Endgame. Tell me yours in the comments. That's how you keep the discourse alive. Of course, you can have a take that is different than mine. We can of course disagree. We can have a conversation. Anyways, see you next time. This has been TD Reviews Movies.